would you help a new employee understand the culture when they join the company?
I would, so the process we have today, we have a kind of two-week onboarding structure. So every team lead will spend time with a new employee, giving them at least an hour session on what that particular team does. In terms of cultural values, I spend time with each new employee talking about the culture and 3 of our underlying values. To give you a kind of example of that, a value we prize quite a lot in this company has been like radically transparent, being very direct about what we're doing and why something. So that's the kind of value I'll say, okay, well, after every meeting, we have a retrospective. What does a retrospective mean? It means we're going to work out what went well, what didn't go so well. We also have a section in that meeting where you can give me, for example, targeted feedback on where I could have improved, and I'll do the same for you. So I try and make sure that the cultural values are very defined up front. Then the question is, well, how do we actually make sure they're permeated? So then we kind of make sure the values are reinforced through the company. So Fridays, we have what's called a town hall, where every team will talk about what went well, what didn't go so well in the week. And we have a section of the town hall where anyone can ask a question, either live in the moment or beforehand, and anyone in the company can be called on to answer it. And that again kind of creates this very kind of democratic momentum in the company where like anyone could be held accountable for something.
Fantastic. Even to yourself, of course.
Yeah, no, I love a kind of heavy feedback culture. It's something I didn't, 4 years ago when someone kind of gave me a point of feedback or critical feedback, I'd feel like pretty uncomfortable. Yeah. But I kind of over time tried to kind of grow to love it because I think it's the only way you learn.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received yourself?
I'd probably say the best one was know what you don't know as a crucial one, because I think otherwise people, they can be overly confident about everything and obviously make a huge amount of mistakes, whereas the more doubtful you are about stuff, the easier it is to evolve. So a practice I generally try to adhere to is kind of say, I think we should go with this approach, we should kind of make this decision, but I'm pretty doubtful whether it's the right one. And just be like very clear in my mind, do I have good evidence to back it off or no, I don't. And I think if you don't, you should still make it. You can still make a decision at high degrees of velocity, but you can be clear at the point you make the decision that you're not really basing on it much. I think it's a good practice because it kind of educates people that a startup is operating in massive uncertainty and needs to move fast, but it's going to make quite a few decisions that will be wrong. Kind of good piece of advice I had. I didn't get that from in person. I read a book by a guy called Charlie Munger on that, and he kind of makes a big point about being clear what you don't know.
What's the, leading on from that, what's perhaps the mistake you've witnessed leaders making more frequently than others?
I think mistakes I see made with companies when they believe they have product market fit before they do. So they try and scale too early. And they kind of, something you hear about Airbnb in the early stages, they went to every single apartment and onboarded every customer. But I think a lot of companies go past that point too quickly and they try and automate everything before they've actually even found a problem they can solve. And I think that's often driven by the kind of tech crunch culture where everyone wants to scale, everyone wants to optimize. But ultimately you can only do that when you have the foundations in place. The other mistake I think companies of Cytora's equivalent kind of make is people always talk about raising money. Like it's some sort of badge of honor. They'll kind of be like, I'm raising money, who are you raising money from? And the point is like, the key is like not to raise money. Be so successful you don't need to. Going back to Indeed.com, just raised 5 million. But in London, I think there's often this kind of pride about like raising money and kind of the valuation becomes more important than the measurable value your product makes. I think that's a right way around. Yeah.
That's a great point. What, if there was a trait or behaviour that you've seen derail more leaders' careers, or you think that made derail their career, what would it be?
I think not being good at listening, especially if you have an early leader who maybe doesn't have that much experience and they move into a new phase of growth. And the difference between what made you successful when you were under 20 people to that stage when you were 100 people moved to 500, they're two very different phases. And trying to extrapolate one into the other is probably a foolish thing to do. So I think it's really important to listen. And also to be like self-aware enough to know when what you're good at is not right for the next phase of the company. So I think there's generally two phases of the company. One is where vision, and it's ultimately persuading someone of some idea is like going to change the world. Another phase is more about, well, how do we just optimize? How do we scale more rapidly? And for that phase, you need people with really proven skills. And that's something I try and think about myself, which is like, am I right for this next phase? As a CEO, am I the right person to be CEO? And I hope if there's a phase that I'm not right for, I'll have the kind of just the context to say the company needs someone different at this stage. Like I'm probably not, but I think everyone should have that mindset if you're in a leadership position.
I think that's a great point, and it's great that you're even thinking about that and being so honest and sharing that with our listeners, for example.